This video is to help me revise statistics for my exam. If it helps you, particularly if you're at Bristol third year doing medical sciences statistics, then I hope it helps you. It's going to be question based, some questions are going to be repeated, some questions are just a collaboration of my notes and the equations that we need to know. The idea is to hear the question, pause it, answer the question, and then hear the right answer. If you have any corrections for me, please let me know in the comments and I'll annotate the video. Here it goes! Part 1. What is the equation for the standard error of the mean? Standard deviation over the square root of n. What percentage of the population lies within one standard deviation of the mean? 68%. What percentage of the population lies within two standard deviations of the mean? 95. 99% of the population lies within what standard deviation of the mean? 2.6. And 99.9% of the population lies within what standard deviation of the mean? 3.3. What does the f value equal? The between group means over the within group means. What is the equation to work out variation? Sum of squares divided by degrees of freedom. How do you work out standard deviation? Square root the variance. How do you work out the standard error of a proportion? A big square root with p, open brackets, 1 minus p, close brackets, over n. What does r squared equal? The model sum of squares divided by the residual sum of squares. R equals what? Big square root over t squared divided by t squared plus df. What does the Durbin-Watson test for? The independence of the residuals, with 2 equaling no correlation and 0 and 4 causing trouble. What will affect the effect the data point has on the robustness of the model? Leverage, the distance from the mean of the predictor, and the size of the residual, the distance from the regression line. What percentage of what greater than may indicate the model is a poor fit? 5% of residuals being greater than 2. What provides a measure of the overall influence of a data point on the overall model? Cook's distance. Greater than 1 is cause for concern. What does the leverage value gauge? The influence of the data point on the predicted value. What's the equation for this? 2 open brackets k plus 1 close brackets over n, with k being the number of predictors and n being the number of data points. More than 1 equals a big influence. How many times bigger should the sample size be for the number of predictors tested? More than 10. What are categorical variables entered as? Dummy variables. How many less dummy variables should you have than the number of categories? 1 less. What does a one-way ANOVA analyse? How much of the data's variance can be explained by the variation between the group means, model, compared to the unexplained variation within a group, residual. You can remember this by remembering bridge over water, black or white, or bow down. BOW, between, over, within. So that's the between group means divided by the within group means. Can the group sizes in an ANOVA be unequal? No. What can you do if your group sizes are unequal then? How does it work? You can use Welsh's correction. It adjusts the residual degrees of freedom. What is a non-parametric equivalent for the times when you have lots of zeros? Kruskal-Wallis test. Finished! Part 2. When you have a strong correlation among predictors or a weaker correlation of one predictor with multiple predictors, what is the problem? Multi-collinearity problem. Limiting what decreases significance of results? R squared. A variance inflation factor, or VIF, of more than what is bad? More than 10. An average VIF of more than what is bad? More than 1. What is a tolerance factor? The reciprocal of VIF. What should a tolerance factor be above? Should be greater than 0.1 to be okay. How do you decide which predictor to enter? Using your theoretical understanding of science or previous research. Why might automatic variable selection be a bad thing? It may cause multiple comparison problems. In multiple linear regression assumptions, what should the dependent variables be in terms of type? Quantitative and continuous. Predictor variables, which has only 2 categories, should be of what type? Quantitative or categorical? What should predictor variables not have been used to do in the multiple linear regression assumptions? Not used to derive the dependent variable. Beyond interactions among predictors specified in the model, and being independent of other predictors, what should predictors not correlate, too high or too low? They shouldn't correlate too highly, multicollinearity. In an unpaired t-test regression, what does the slope between the two groups show? The difference between the two groups. What is an ANOVA mathematically the same as? Multiple linear regression. What does a one-way ANOVA analyse? How much the overall dataset can be explained by variation between group means, model, compared to the unexplained variation within a group means, residual. When might an ANOVA be a bad idea? When the group sizes are unequal, or when there's lots of zeros?